government employee worker just like me for 23 years. Itong queuing, matagal ko na ito. In Davao, ang passport issuances na doon sa likod ng SM. Isang gabi, nagmotor ako, nakita ko yung mga paa sa simento. So I was thinking, ano nangyari dito? So nagbaba ako, sabi ko, bakit dito kayo natutulog? Sabi nila, you know, Mayor, ang pagbukas niyan, kailangan nakapila na kami. Pag hindi, sunod, ibang araw na naman kami. So, I called for the chief of office. And I said, look, I may not be the person above you supervising, but make sure that this thing will not happen tomorrow. As in tomorrow. Tapos tinawagan ko ang itong sabi ko, why don't you give cards? Kung marami sila paglinya, may maglakad na martial, o ito, ikaw bukas, at 4 p.m. So, you have to study the time and motion of people doing work. Sabi ko, ayaw ko dito sa Davao. Because Mindanao, nasa Davao ang ang issuances ng passport. So ngayon, pagka-presidente ko, sabi ko, ayaw ko nang makita yan. Not during my time. Not during my time. Maghanap ka ng ibang panahon. Ayusin ninyo yan. I do not want people queuing under the heat of the sun and rain. Kaya, sabi ko, di magbigay kayo ng card. They should go to one window, magkuha kayo kung kailan sila makabalik. So divide, I said, study your time. And the motion of, the process of. And dito nangyari na because I insisted. Today, there is no more queuing, especially in the National Office, Statistics Office. Nakita ko. Talagang, sabi ko na, either you fix the thing or I will resign tomorrow because I could not bear to see those people. Hindi sa panahon ko, kung hindi ko madala, hindi ko man kayo mapatay, hindi ko kayo mabugbog. Ako ang alis sa gobyerno. Sabi ko, ayusin ninyo yan. Hindi ko gustong makita yan. Since 2016, the Office of the President has issued 138 executive orders, 43 administrative orders, 86 memorandum circulars, 52 memorandum orders, and 1,038 proclamations. These issuances have been integral guideposts government administration and development agenda. The Office of the President has demonstrated careful stewardship of the power by initiating reforms. We upgraded and improved the system and processes to ensure that it can provide the best service to the institution of the presidency and the offices under it, ultimately to the Filipino people. To further promote transparency and accountability in government, we also issued the order of the Freedom of Information and opens the records of transaction, decision, issuances of all government agencies. In relation to this, we have also Presidential Anti-Corrupt Commission that is tasked to run after corrupt and erring government officials and bring them to justice. Alam mo, I don't know if you perhaps have come to know about this. I have yung pastilya sa sa airport. There were 43 personnel involved. I fired them all. Talagang pinaalis ko sa gobyerno. Nagbalot mga ako ng pera sa pastillas. Sabi ko kay magbalot ka, lagyan mo ng pera. Kaya ito ang ipakain ko sa kanila. Tinawag ko, 43 of them from the immigration. Mabutit na lang, nandyan si Justice Secretary Guevara. So, that prevented me from doing it because kung hindi siya dumating, and I never expected him to be there, bigyan ko isa't isa yung papel at ipakain ko talaga yung pera sa kanila. Kung gusto mo ng pera, kainin mo. That is the best way of... Then you fire them. Customs 73 plus 42, and every day you have about... We have dismissed about 200 government personnel. But some I did not allow the publication because may mga pamilya eh. So of late yung sabi nila na wag na lang kasi nasasaktan yung mga... So ngayon wala na. I have stopped it, but there is no saying that we cannot reimpose it again for all of these idiots. I still have about a year to go. I will reach you somehow. But corruption is endemic in government. You cannot stop corruption. Nobody can stop corruption unless you overturn government completely. If I were the next president, if you think I there's really need for you to change everybody in the system, then you declare martial law and fire everybody and allow the new generation to come in to work for government. Eh, kung hindi mo ganunin, walang mangyari. Nandyan, it's in the system. Kagaya ng drugs. Sino ba naman maniwala na 9 generals sa police were into trafficking of drugs? And because they are policemen, the charges simply just, disobeyed. Because the prosecution, the investigation, which form part of the vital documents in court, nobody was investigating because they are also policemen. Kaya yan kahirap ang ano. Kaya gusto mo, itong mga to, talagang the only way to do it, just call them and say, look for another job. Don't. Ganun kahirap. Now, let me pursue my talk with the foreign policy of the country. In the international arena, we have vigorously pursued an independent foreign policy centered on the promotion and protection of our core national interests. Yet, sigurado kayo sa pinapakan ninyo? I was just laying the predicate of what I'm going to say. Yet, we continue. I will just give the cue, then you clap your hands. If I yet biro lang yan. Yet we continue to work with all nations and seek partnerships that work. Because despite differences, it is an independent world where interests and objectives intersect. Now, partners heretofore silent for equivocal reasons have expressed their principled positions that echo our own. That disputes and contested areas, the majesty of the law must prevail, and this is most welcome. To our friends in ASEAN and around the world, thank you for supporting my government, my country and people, where it truly matters. I assure you that the Philippines will remain a responsible member of the international community. And we will work with you to achieve our shared objectives. But no mistake, make no mistake rather. Gone are the days when the Philippines decides and acts in the shadows of the great powers. We will assert what is rightfully ours and fight for what is rightfully due to the Filipino people. We do not have any Sona every day. Now is as good as any other time to just let it out from puso mo. This is why we send back container vans of garbage, because our country is not a dump site. And the first country to do that, hindi ko alam kung bakit, ang Canada. And the container was there for 3 years because hindi alam ng port authorities kung anong gawain nila sa garbage. And I said, isauli mo. I want it done tomorrow. Those containers must be out of our country. Pag hindi, kayong lahat, all of you in custody, I'll fire you. That is a good ground for dismissing people for accepting the garbage. Kaya, may isa pa. Pero let you in this story. The Balingiga. Well, we welcome back the bells of Balingiga after many decades because a historic wrong needed to be corrected. The deal was, I would say, I am in bad faith. Sigurado yan, I will admit it. But this is the real story. The Americans, former soldiers, war veterans, went to see me, I think it was in Aguinaldo, and some military men. And in no uncertain terms, they said that you have been invited by Trump to go to America. Have you decided to go there? I said, no. Why? Because I do not like the way that you are treating my country. Why? I said, for one, and there was the clamor now of Balingiga, you return the bells of Balingiga. So that's a war really sacred also to the soldiers. Then it is more sacred to us, in addition to the religion, the Roman Catholic Filipino the church. Sabi nila, why would to make a deal? Si Hogan, he is around. He's a CIA agent. Sabi niya, isauli namin, pupunta ka, because I said earlier in my presidency, there will never be a time that I will go to America. Itong mga media mahilag mag-utyok ganon, bakit ka hindi punta? Arte mo lang yan. Sabi ko, then you watch me. Di gusto ninyong malaman. Sabi ko sa Amerika, yes, I might consider going to America. So, well then. Sabi ko, work on it. In just 2 months' time, they told me that the ship carrying the Balangig bells are on their way. To deliver it to Quezon. You remove it, you put it back there. Kayo mismo. So, tulong-tulong sila doon. Nabalik na. Hogan said, so, when are you going to go to America? So, I do not have the time. But, I will go there. Nung malapit na, hindi na talaga ako pumunta sa, well, how about your promise? Well, I lost time to do it. I cannot do it now. Pero talaga, in my mind, and the Americans might know it, there was never in my mind a trip to America. Yung Balingig, sabi ko, you massacred one barangay, baryo noon. Women and children and all. Pinatay nila lahat. Because that bell, Balangig was used to call the people for prayers, gano'n. Sa simbahan yun eh. So, yung ginawa nila, every time it is used, the Americans knew that it has a great significance to the Filipinos, the Balangiga. After the massacre of one barangay, how many at the time, we would never know. But it was said, isang baryo. No barangay ngayon, baryo noon yan eh. Baryo is an American word. The barrio. They also call the small places in Mexico barrio. Right? The Americans borrowed it from the Spaniards, barrio. So, sabi ko, blood, you really got it at the expense of the blood of Filipinos. I do not hurry me up. If I go to America, it will be in my own time. Pero actually, wala ako. I have not been to America for almost 10 years, 22 years. I have not visited America, and I do not have any intention of visiting it anymore. We called on the world to dismantle the heinous kafala system. Ito rin isa. Because the Filipino is no slave unto anyone, anywhere. And there is no room for modern day slavery. We helped start a new global civil rights movement for the migrant worker. And we asserted the arbitration ruling on the South China Sea clearly and in no uncertain terms, bilaterally, and the ASEAN, and finally at the United Nations General Assembly. And let me talk about that. I said in the September of last year, the arbitral award is now part of the international law and beyond compromise and beyond the reach of the passing governments to dilute, to diminish, or abandon. this is the problem. Leave it up to just to everybody in the Middle East. I would like to tell them that not only Filipinos but all human beings, the kafala has no place there because it's a setup for slavery. Either you correct it or we will ask our workers, Filipino workers, to go home. Sabi ko, bahala na. Kung mahirap lang kami dito, okay lang. We will try our very best to make up for what they have lost, what they will lose in the process. But we will never allow them to be slaves. But we need to do more with our partners. We continue scaling our maritime domain awareness, defense capabilities. Yet, we will not close our doors on diplomacy and the tongue, because that is how disputes are settled and never by force. Let me alam mo, I respect the opinion. You should be aware by now of how I talk, especially on matters of crucial matters that involves the country. Ito bang arbitral ruling? I've said it I think in the later part of the speech. I said that what's your problem in the arbitral ruling? America and some Filipinos, brilliant Filipinos, I would say, keep on pushing for something which I really do not know. I have made a speech before the UN. Nakasumplo rin, nandito lang ako. Hindi ako pumunta doon. But in that speech, I laid down the bare, sabi ko, ng ating administrasyon. Ano pa ang gusto ninyo? What will I do with a document that is not bind China because they were never a part of that arbitration? There was really no arbitration at all because it was only the Philippine side was served. Well and good. But ito ngayon, that there is the arbitral ruling, you know, I do not want to insult these people pushing me for something more than what I can handle. At anong gusto nila makipagira? Do something. What they do something? Do you want war against China? Well, I'll tell you, even on the coast beach of Palawan, before you can take off, the missile of China would be there in about 5 or 10 minutes. It would be a massacre if I go and fight a war now. We are not yet a competent and able enemy of the other side. So what I did was I was just being nice to them. But for some people to say that I was helped by China in being president, these idiots, really. I will never do that. Hindi na bali ako, hindi ma-presidente, hindi talaga gagawin yun. To be, what? Receiving money from China to buy votes? They say that they help. Maybe in some Chinese communities, the gossip going around was that support Duterte. But the whole of the Chinese community in the Philippines went for me. Why? Kasi sa Davao nung mayor ako, ni minsan hindi ako tumatanggap baski Christmas gift. Tapos dito sa Maynila, presidente ako ngayon. Marami nagpapadala ng baril, kung ano dyan, gobset. Sabi ko, isa uli mo yan. Yung mga relo, itong aking relo, it's IWC, this is only 300,000. But the patik that has come with me, sinauli ko talaga, return it. O pag hindi, itapon mo sa Pasig sa harapan nila. Hindi ako tinulungan ng China. Nag-usap kami ng China civilly, but after election. And after election, I was a good friend of presidency. Until now, when the pandemic struck, the first country I called for help was China. President Xi, sabi ko, President, we have no vaccination program here because we do not have the vaccines. We have not been able to invent one. We might have a hard time. He said, no, it's okay, we'll send you. And he sent us, I donated about 1,500,000 of vaccines. Gano'n, kaya sabi ko, ako, lalo na kami mga Bisaya, mabigat sa amin yan, for us Visayans, yung utang na loob, mabigat talaga yan. Hindi mo mabayaran ng pero pag may utang na loob ako sa iyo, you can be sure that I will be your friend, a true friend, and die for you. Pero itong China mag-die, bakit ako mapakamatay dyan ng sundalo ko, ubusin ko? How can we fight China? Do we have the weapons? Do we have the everything? Now comes America. They say that if the attack is against the Philippines, they will defend. But they issued a statement that America does not meddle in conflicts involving the boundaries of other nations. And if America has to go to war, you would have to go to Congress to get, American Congress to get authority to go to war. That is why many presidents, hindi na lang, it was just not an error, a mistake, a malicious mistake. No president has ever been punished for attacking nations, getting into a fight with nothing. And if they come here, well, ang problema kasi nandito niya yung balingiga, sa uli na lang natin, uli. We're just returning pag ito eh. So big dito, heard the bells, ring it until you die. Fulfilling my promise to our coconut farmers and the Filipino people, my administration has worked with Congress to pass the Coconut Farmers and Industry Trust Fund Act. We have returned also the Coco Levy funds to its true and rightful owners, our coconut farmers. The fund is now worth estimated to be 75 billion, which will be utilized according to the plans and programs in the Coconut Farmers and Industry Development Plan for the direct benefit of the Philippine coconut farmers and the development of the coconut industry. In our effort to ensure that food is within reach to every Filipino family, we work for the passage of the rice tarification law in 2019 despite pushbacks. This resulted in the stabilization of rice supply and food prices and the proceeds from the tariffs that enabled us to provide our farmers with modern machineries that increase their yield and sustaining growth agricultural production. We also fulfilled our promise to improve free irrigation. That was the first promise I made some in San Miguel, Bulacan when I was campaigning. The farmers invited me to go into the farms inside San Miguel, Bulacan. And we had a sort of well, a meeting, and the first thing that they were complaining about was the severity of the irrigation that they have to pay 5,000 every month, every year. So sabi ko, I will work on it. Free Irrigation Service Act of 2018 is a product that now lowers the cost of agricultural production, especially for poor farmers. We also work to ensure that households have adequate supply of clean water, potable and affordable water. It's more than a commodity. It is vital. It is a vital public good. This is why I used my political capital to fight vested interest behind disadvantageous water service contracts that burden consumers with unjustified water rights prices increases with the signing of this concession water agreements. Consumers will be protected at least until 2037. Ganito yan eh. There is this concessionaire, dalawa. Ayoko na lang mag-ano. I will not mention names. Pero this is really what happened. Ang dalawang concessionaires, one in the south and the other one is north. As the rich cartel dito sa Southeast Asia, ang kinakapture nila ang electricity pati tubig. Dito sa tubig, in this contract with water concessionaires, we made so many concessions that really, sabi ko, if you look at the contract and look at the anti-graft law, talagang it's all anti-graft. All of the sentences, even the period and question mark there. Bakit? Sila walang problema sa tax because the people, consumers, will pay the taxes for them. Sila kung malugi, sabi na, hindi na kasalanan, and we can think of it through not of their own fault, sabi doon, bayaran natin sila malugi. We pay for the tax corporation nila at sila ang mag-decide kung i-increase nila o i-decrease nila ang water prices. The regulators, itong mga regulators sa Pilipinas, walang magawa and they acceded to the contract. It was really, I don't know how to put it. Kaya ako nag-pardon, di ba nagmura ako? Sabi ko, Pero kung malugi sila, babayaran pa natin. Tayo ang corporate tax nila. Tayo ang magbayad. And it's a cartel that service concessionaires are part of the cartel of Malaysia and Indonesia, and they form part of that mother corporation. Itong mga sa Pilipinas, pati Malaysia, Indonesia, they are just, kumbaga sa storya, chapter lang yan sila. It's being controlled up by the kasabi ko, wala ito. I told them, I told Dominguez, tell them that I am no longer honoring the contract. Meron pa doon, payment of itong tax, water treatment plant to be constructed in the Harrison Plaza site. Yun ang pinirmahan natin. So, 1997 up to the present, or up to the month that I do my top, nagbabayad, ewan ko kung ngayon nagbabayad, there's a, sa water bills ninyo, for enhancement of quality of water. Ang ibig sabihin, water treatment. And they were collecting since 1997. So until now, how much of the Filipinos' money are with them for nothing, not even for a song? Kaya ako, if there is something, hindi naman proud, but if there is something someday that my children will say, what have you done for my country? Sabihin ko, sila. Talagang inupakan ko sila. Sabi ko, ayaw ninyo? You do not want it? Well, okay. I will just confiscate your system and call the military to operate it. I will exercise the eminent domain and expropriate all of your assets here. Kasi gagawin ko. Yun ang nangyari ka. So, sinabi ko sa military in one of our meetings immediately after that incident, I said, if I do not make it to the finish line, kindly, look kindly at the Filipino at tanungin ninyo kung ano na ang nangyari sa kanila. Yang tubig na yan. Now there is a new contract. I have not yet, I have to thoroughly digest it inside. I have to absorb it, every word of it, that the Filipino is protected. Pag nandiyan na yan, then I will sign. But I will not forget. I'm telling them, the crime is there already. And any Filipino would want to go after you, can. Sabi ko, I will not free you. I will not, there's no waiver in your, I will never allow that. Just make a new contract. Just realize every day that I can call you itong frequency ng ABS-CBN. Yan ang pinaka-ideal kasi, you know, frequency is everywhere. But there is a spot kung sa Gulf is a soft spot na maganda yung Wala akong problema sa ABS-CBN. They got my money. I'm not for that. They wanted to return it when the case blew up, but they printed all the garbage, including my daughter as a drug trafficker. Nilamon ko na lang lahat yun because I never wanted to appear vindictive. But itong they are cheating government by the billions in taxes. And they still want that frequency because yan ang pinapag-awayan. No. I will give it to a Filipino na gustong magawa ng tamang unpay because isa ABS-CBN, even their equipments were imported tax-free. Kaya talaga ako hindi magpapayag. They still owe government billions. In the contract na sa nakalagay doon 4 hectares. So ang binabayaran nila 4 hectares sa property tax. Suppose occupying 40 hectares. That complex there. Pero ginamit nila na papel yung 4 hectares. Yun lang ang binabayaran nila. Kung hindi ba naman, kaya ko sila inaway. Well, our micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs constitute 99.6% of our country's businesses and are vital to economic activity, job creation, and poverty reduction. Iparamdam natin ang ating malasakit sa maliliit na negosyante sa pamamagitan ng pondo sa pagbago at pag-asenso program since 2017. Meron na tayo. We have the program. The program has provided over 219,000 underprivileged microeconomic entrepreneurs with an alternative to the exploitive lending 5-6. Yan ang nakaano sa, you know what? Maybe I have to go to, if need be, I have to go to India. Yung 5-6 nila ng Turko, tinatawag ng Turko, kung maghiram ka sa kanila ng 10,000, pahiramin kanyang, hindi pera 10,000, 7,000 lang. And the others, mga refrigerator or things that you do not even need in the house, bilhin mo sa kanila, sala set, lahat na. That is part of the money. You do not want the furnitures, the refrigerators, they won't give you the. Kaya ang Pilipino na buktot, alam mo buktot, naging hunchback na lang sa trabaho, ganun pa man. Kaya ako, sabihin ko itong mga Turko, you better come up with a fair. If you want to go into business, money lending, but not at that usury 1,000 times. Likewise, to further support development of our micro and small business, we initiated radical reforms in the tax system to ease the taxation burden and increase the net income of lower wage earners and small businesses. Thanks to Congress. Yan, hindi pa ninyo alam ha. Sabi ko lang, thanks to Congress and our revenue-generating agencies, our tax reform sustained our economic growth from the third quarter of 2016 to the fourth quarter of 2019, which made the Philippines one of the fastest-growing economies in Asia until the pandemic scourge. Yan talaga ang, well, I don't know what's the plan of God. The study is something which hit us right in the heart. We see there's no way of telling when this virus would disappear from the planets of the earth. We can only pray to God to look into our direction and decide on what will happen to this planet He created. However, tax laws are not always perfect, and that is why every now and then they have to be revisited to see if they are at pace with the changing times. Let us therefore continue to monitor the relevance and the impact of our tax laws on individuals and private institutions to prevent serious damage on their financial health. Going now to the social and health issues. To burden of people from the hefty cost of tertiary education, my administration worked with Congress to pass a landmark legislation that had remained unpassed for so many years. The Universal Access or Tertiary Education Act in 2017, which provides free education to college students and state universities. Thank you, Congress. We also passed the Universal Health Care Act in 2019. And to supplement this, I also signed into law the Malasakit Centers Act in 2019. Kasi ganito yan eh. Pag ang pobreng Pilipino na sa ospital, magpunta pa siya doon sa kung saan makahingi ng tulong. So, ang ginawa, just like in Davao, ginawa namin, yung lahat na kailangan, yung internal revenue kung nandyan, business permit, dyan na lang sa isang lugar, medisina, kunin nila. Dyan mismo sa ospital. Hindi na sila maglakad-lakad. And to me, that is one of the most, let me find the word, a poignant act of Congress and of the Executive Department. Legislation which was sponsored by Senator Bongo. If you feel like standing up, you can, Senator. Masikat ka pa sa guest speaker. And burden our people with the tedious process of going to various agencies and offices in order to avail assistance from government. I am pleased to report that we have already established 130 malasakit centers across the country. That has already helped millions of Filipinos in their hospitalization needs. By establishing malasakit centers all over the country, we have actually leveled the playing field and provide our less fortunate countrymen the medical care they deserve. We will be establishing more, God willing, if we are still around. Sa pagtatag ng Malalakit Center, hindi po kailangan lumapit at humingi ng tulong sa iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno. Ang gobyerno na ang lumalapit sa tao. So, let us talk about COVID. It's mentioned everywhere in the speech, but what's this goddamn virus is? I have to admit, back when I decided to answer your call and run for higher office, never did I imagine that my presidency would not only be judged by how I made good in my campaign promises in fighting illegal drugs, criminality, corruption, but how well I led our nation during the global pandemic. Hindi na ako makapronounce ng buti, baka mayroon na ako. May ambulansya ba dyan? Mukhang iba na ang... I cannot pronounce the words. I hope this is not a symptomatic. Prior to the pandemic, we recorded our lowest debt to GDP ratio since 1986, the highest revenue effort since 1997, the highest credit rating in the country's history, yung sa bangko. Because if your rating is high, it's easy to borrow at maliit lang ang interest. That is the dynamics of a rating by Fitch and Poor, mga ganon. So, and the lowest rates of unemployment and underemployment and poverty, well, it's still there. It is beyond dispute that our economic governance fundamentals were robust when COVID-19 hit us. I am sure that much can be said about the way we took on the daunting challenge of preserving lives while sustaining our momentum towards the developmental, dito na lang ako, goals. Naturally, we prioritize saving lives. Buhay muna bago ang lahat. Ibig sabihin, nununa natin yung gastos, yung pera natin sa pandemic. Kinuha ng lahat ng mga budget. Si Dominguez yan. Yun ang ginamit ninyo sa bayanihan man anto. Doon natin kinuha yung pera. We move quickly to safeguard the well-being of every Filipino through preventive and responsive health and safety measures and broad inclusive social amelioration programs, or SAP. Thanks to the support of Congress, we launched the most extensive social protection program in our country's history with the Bayanihan passage of Bayanihan 1 and Bayanihan 2. Indeed, our national health system and the resilience were tested to the hilt. Countless lessons we learned and continuously improvements put in place. Kahit anong crisis ay kaya malampasan kung tunay na may malasakit at bayanihan. I agree. At the early stages of the pandemic, our testing capacity was very limited. recognizing the importance of conducting more tests to ensure early detection and timely isolation of confirmed COVID-19 cases, we ramp up our testing capacity